Rajasthan in northwest India. Farmers here waited in vain this year for the summer monsoon. With no rain, the ground has cracked and hardened and crops have perished. Within the state boundaries, 15 million people have already been affected by the drought and the famine that stemmed from it. The situation's very similar in at least 3 other states, and the total number of people affected could be as high as 50 million. Drought is nothing new in India, of course. The northwestern states and the Deccan Plain are accustomed to periodic droughts roughly every 5 years. But this year, even districts which normally escape its effects are suffering badly. Among the first to suffer are livestock, whose grazing grounds have often been reduced virtually to zero. Even camels, well adapted to desert conditions, are finding difficulty in getting enough to eat, and many farmers are allowing their animals to go free to search out their own food on the barren land. Here in Jodhpur district, there is water in the wells, but only at great depth, and it needs a long rope to pull it up. In many areas, the wells are few and far between, and women often have to walk several miles back to their homes. Only the lucky few have wheeled transport. The drought is so serious and so widespread that India's Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, has flown into these stricken areas by helicopter to judge the size of the problem for herself. For the people who are affected, the drought is a human tragedy, but for Mrs. Gandhi, it's a political problem as well. It's estimated that at least 5 million tons of grain will have to be imported this year, but this would place an intolerable burden on India's foreign exchange reserves. India could buy American grain with rupees, but Mrs. Gandhi has so far refused to do so in the interests of national self-reliance. Meanwhile, farmers with no crops left to farm are desperate for some means of earning a living. Their main hopes at the moment are the special relief project set up by the government. These bring farmers and their families trekking in from all over the region. This is a typical project, road building at Keruberai. The government's investment is almost entirely restricted to manpower, so equipment consists of little more than a few simple hand tools. In terms of the area's long-term needs in communications, this is quite literally only scratching the surface. But after a hard, dusty day's work, a farmer and his wife can earn the equivalent of 50 US cents a day. That may not be much, but it's better than starving. The irony is that the drought has come at a time when Indian agriculture is well on the way to solving some of its most pressing problems. Production of wheat, for example, has doubled over the last 5 years, and given normal weather conditions, the country can now avoid serious grain shortages. In India, however, normal conditions are rare indeed. Even as the drought was raging here, more than 100 people in the neighboring state of Uttar Pradesh were dying of cold.